Captain Jake Morrison stood in front of the big screen on his ship's bridge. He watched something that made his heart beat faster. After flying through space for 18 months, his ship had found something strange, something that should not be there. The UCS Liberty was huge. It carried 50,000 people who were sleeping in special pods. These people were going to start a new life on a planet far from Earth. Jake was their captain. He had to keep them safe. "How far away is it?" Jake asked his crew. Kate Sullivan looked at her controls. She was the person who helped the ship find its way through space. 2,000 kilometers, Captain. It's getting closer to us. The thing is man-made, but it's not from Earth. It's big, too. Maybe half the size of our ship. Dr. Lisa Wang was excited. She was the ship's doctor who studied alien life. She had been waiting her whole career for something like this. "Captain, I can see life signs. Something is alive on that ship. There are many creatures, and I think they need help." Commander Rick Torres stepped forward. He was in charge of keeping everyone safe. Rick always thought about danger first. "Sir, we have 50,000 sleeping people on our ship. They are counting on us to get them to their new home. The rules say we should tell Earth about this and keep flying." Jake nodded. He understood how hard this choice was. The Liberty was not built for fighting or exploring. It was built to carry people to a new world. Every piece of equipment, every day of travel, every choice had been planned for one job only. They needed to start a human city on a planet called Kepler 442b. "Lisa, what can you tell me about their condition?" Jake asked. Dr. Wang's fingers moved fast on her computer. "The life signs are getting weaker. Whatever they are dying. Their ship looks like it's floating in space with no power. They can't move." Everyone on the bridge became quiet. Jake had been a soldier before he became captain of this colony ship. He had made hard choices before, but never one that might decide what aliens would think about humans when they first met. "Captain," Dan Peters called out. He was the person who handled all messages coming to the ship. "I'm getting something from them. It's not exactly a call for help, but our computer is trying to understand what they're saying." Strange symbols appeared on another screen. The computer tried to translate them into English. The words that appeared were help, running away, children, dying, no home. Dr. Wang turned to Jake. Her eyes showed both scientific curiosity and human kindness. "Captain, this could be the most important moment in human history. First contact with aliens who need our help." Rick crossed his arms. "Or it could be the moment we destroyed our own mission to save strangers who might not even live through our rescue attempt." Jake walked to the big window and looked at the alien ship. It was beautiful in a way that human ships were not. It had smooth curves instead of sharp edges. Its surface seemed to change colors in the starlight. Everything about it whispered of intelligence that was completely different from human intelligence. "How long would it take to connect our ships and rescue them?" Jake asked Elena Vasquez. She was his chief engineer. Elena was a small woman who was very good at her job. She had fixed many problems during their long trip through space. She thought carefully before answering. 6 hours at least to make a safe connection between the ships. Maybe 12 hours to figure out what they need and try to save them. That's if their ship doesn't break apart when we try to board it." "Captain," Dr. Paul Jackson spoke up. He was the ship's psychologist. He helped people deal with their feelings in different cultures. "Whatever we decide here will be remembered. By us, by the colonists when they wake up, by history. What kind of people do we want to be when we live among the stars?" Jake closed his eyes for a moment. He thought about the sleeping families in the colony sections, parents who had sold everything they owned for a chance at a new world, children who would wake up on an alien planet and call it home. What would they think of him if he turned away from the first aliens humanity had ever met? What would he think of himself? "Stop the ship," Jake ordered. "Elena, start getting ready to connect to their ship. Lisa, prepare a team to make first contact. Paul, start thinking about how we can talk to them." He turned to Rick. "I need you to prepare security, but remember these are refugees, not enemies." "Sir?" Rick said in a tight voice. I hope you're right. 2 hours later, Jake put on a spacesuit along with his first contact team. The alien ship's hull was more complex than they expected. It was not made of metal, but some kind of living material that their tools could barely scan. Elena had managed to create a flexible seal between the ships, but the air and pressure readings from the other side showed an environment that would kill humans. Heavy nitrogen-methane mix, Dr. Wang reported through her helmet radio. Some oxygen, but not enough. For us. Whatever lives in there breathes something closer to what you'd find on Saturn's moon Titan than on Earth. The airlock opened, and Jake stepped into a world that challenged everything he thought he knew about spaceships. Instead of hallways and rooms, they found themselves in what looked like a huge garden. Structures grew from the walls like massive trees. Their branches formed walkways and platforms. Glowing pods provided gentle light that shifted from blue to green to gold, and everywhere, dying aliens. They looked like nothing Jake had ever seen or imagined. They were tall, graceful beings with skin like tree bark. Their arms and legs moved, like branches swaying in a slow wind. Some sat around large, wilting plants in poses that looked like meditation. Others tended to smaller versions of themselves. Jake realized with shock that these were their children. My God, Dr. Wang whispered. They're plant-based, but look at how complex they are. They use tools, they have social structure, they have technology. This is incredible. One of the aliens approached them slowly. It stood nearly 8 feet tall, with skin that seemed to shift between brown and deep green. When it spoke, the ship's translation computer turned its words into careful, formal English. I am called Sage Bloom by your language concepts. You are the travelers from the far system we detected. Why do you come to us? Jake stepped forward. His heart was pounding with the weight of history. I am Captain Jake Morrison. We received your distress signals and came to help. What happened to you? Sage Bloom's form seemed to droop with sadness. Our world tree was consumed by the collective. They are machines that eat all living things to fuel their growth. We ran away with what children we could save, but our ship is failing. We die slowly in the cold between stars. Dr. Wang was already studying the environment with her instruments. Captain, their life support is failing. The plants they depend on are dying from radiation and lack of food. They need different soil, different air, specific minerals we might not have. How many of you are there? Jake asked Sage Bloom. 237 adults. 46 children. We are all that remains of our people. The weight of that statement hit Jake like a physical blow. An entire species, reduced to fewer than 300 individuals, slowly dying in a broken ship between the stars. We'll find a way to help you, Jake said. The words came out before he had fully thought through what they meant. Dr. Wang, work with Sage Bloom to understand their needs. Elena, start figuring out how we can change our systems to support them. As they worked to establish basic communication and gather important information, Jake could not shake the feeling that this moment would define not just their mission, but humanity's place in the galaxy. They had come to the stars as colonists, seeking a new home for their own species. Now they faced their first test of what kind of neighbors they would be. The next 24 hours tested every system on the Liberty and every friendship among the crew. Dr. Wang worked with growing worry alongside Sage Bloom and 2 other Zephyrians who were like their engineers. The aliens called themselves the Zephyrian people. Their living technology was both beautiful and completely different from human machines. They need soil, Elena Vasquez told Captain Morrison during an emergency meeting. Not just dirt. They need specific minerals, bacteria, and the right acid levels. Their whole body depends on root-like connections to what they call the growth bed. Without it, they're basically starving to death. Commander Rick Torres paced around the small meeting room like a trapped animal. Captain, we've done the math. Changing Cargo Bay 7 to support their life needs will use up 40% of our terraforming supplies. That's materials we need to make breathable air and good soil on Kepler 442b. Dr. Paul Jackson spread his hands on the table. Rick makes good points, but we're talking about saving an entire species. The moral implications. What about the moral implications of dooming our own colonists? Rick interrupted. Jake, I've been running security checks. We have families depending on us. Children who will wake up on a new world expecting us to have prepared everything they need to survive. Jake felt the weight of command settling on, his shoulders like a heavy blanket. What's our timeline, Elena? 48 hours, maybe less. Their ship systems are failing faster now that we've connected to our power grid. The stress of linking to our electrical system is causing failures throughout their biotechnology. We either bring them aboard now or lose them. Dr. Wang leaned forward. Captain, there's something else. I've been studying their biological processes, and they're not just refugees. They could be the solution to several of our colonization problems. Their ability to turn organic waste into clean air and water is incredibly efficient. Their plant-growing techniques could change how we produce food. That's just guessing, Rick said firmly. What's not guessing is that our life support systems are already showing stress. Adding nearly 300 aliens with completely different environmental needs could cause system failures that kill thousands of our people in their sleep pods. The room became quiet. Jake looked around at his senior staff. These were people he trusted with his life and the lives of everyone aboard. They were all right in their own ways, which made the decision much harder. There's another factor, Dr. Jackson said quietly. I've been watching the interactions between our people and the Zephyrians. Something amazing is happening. Our crew members aren't just helping because they're ordered to. They're connecting with these beings on a deep level. He turned on a wall screen showing security footage from Cargo Bay 7, where the rescue operations were happening. Human crew members worked alongside Zephyrians, using hand gestures and simple drawings to communicate. A maintenance worker named Carl Davis was carefully helping a young Zephyrian tend to a dying plant. Botanist Susan Clark sat with an adult Zephyrian who appeared to be teaching her their method of checking soil. Look at them, Jackson continued. No fear, no hesitation. Humans and Zephyrians working together like they've known each other for years. There's something about their species that brings out our desire to work together. Elena nodded. I've noticed it too. My engineering teams are working better with the Zephyrians than they do alone. It's like their presence makes us better somehow. Rick shook his head. Good feelings don't change physics, Paul. We don't have the resources to support both species long-term. Jake stood and walked to the window. Outside, the Zephyrian ship was clearly dying. Its glowing hull was growing dimmer by the hour. In a few more days, it would be a tomb. There's a third option, Jake said finally. We wake some colonists early. The room erupted in protests. Early awakening from the sleep pods was dangerous under the best circumstances. The medical risks were severe, and they had safety rules. For good reasons, Jake, that's crazy, Rick said. The medical risks alone are less than letting an entire species die when we could save them, Jake finished. Elena, what if we wake, say, 50 people? Engineers, biologists, farmers, people who could help us find solutions we haven't thought of. Elena was quiet for a long moment. It's possible. Risky, but possible. We'd need Dr. Kim's approval for the medical procedures. I'll talk to her, Jake said. Lisa, I need you to work with Sage Bloom on cultural exchange. If we're going to have humans and Zephyrians working together, we need to understand each other. Rick stood up suddenly. Captain, I formally request that this decision be put to a vote among senior staff. The risks to our mission are too great for one person to decide. Jake met his security chief's eyes. Rick was a good man, and his concerns were valid. But sometimes being in command meant making decisions that couldn't be reduced to committee votes. Request denied, Rick. This is my call, and I'm making it. We're not abandoning people who need our help. Rick's jaw tightened, but he nodded stiffly. Understood, sir, but I want my concerns on the record. Noted and logged, Jake replied. Now let's figure out how to save everyone. As the meeting broke up, Dr. Jackson stayed behind. You know, Captain, there's something Sage Bloom told me that I think you should hear. What's that? When I asked him why they trusted us so quickly, he said something interesting. He said that among all the species they'd met, humans were the first to ask, how can we help, instead of what can you do for us? He thinks that might be what defines our species. Jake thought about that as he headed to the medical bay to discuss early awakening procedures with Dr. Kim. If that was true, if humanity's greatest strength really was their instinct to help others, then maybe this crisis wasn't a test of their resources. Maybe it was a test of their character. 3 hours later, Jake stood in Medical Bay 7, watching the first group of early awakened colonists with a mixture of worry and hope. Dr. Sarah Kim had overseen the dangerous procedure with her usual skill, and the results were better than anyone had expected. All 50 people are stable, Dr. Kim reported. Some confusion and mild cold symptoms, but nothing we can't handle. I have to admit, Captain, they're adapting to the situation remarkably well. Jake smiled as he watched the newly awakened colonists through the observation window. Bob Miller, a farmer from Iowa, was deep in conversation with a Zephyrian about soil, using hand gestures and rough drawings to bridge the language gap. Mary Foster, a teacher from Oregon, had somehow found a tablet and was working on what appeared to be a basic picture dictionary. Any regrets about being woken up early? Jake had asked them during their briefing. Hell no, Bob had replied with a grin. I signed up to start a new life among the stars. Nobody said it had to wait until we reached the planet. Now watching them work, Jake felt his decision had been right. The human Zephyrian work teams had not only solved the immediate life support crisis, but had begun developing combined systems that served both species better than either could achieve alone. Elena appeared beside Jake at the observation window. Her usually calm manner showed signs of excitement. Captain, you need to see what they've accomplished in Cargo Bay 12. Jake followed her through corridors that now carried the subtle, pleasant scent of growing things. The Zephyrians' presence had changed the ship in ways no one had expected. Their biological processes were naturally cleaning the air and creating a sense of natural harmony that made the sterile corridors feel more like home. Cargo Bay 12 had been transformed into something that belonged more in a garden than a spaceship. Zephyrian growth beds covered the floor in organized patterns, but instead of the alien plants they'd seen on the dying ship, these beds supported a mixed ecosystem. Human food crops grew alongside Zephyrian nutrient plants, their roots intertwined, in ways that seemed to benefit both species. Look at this, Elena said, leading him to a monitoring station where Bob Miller and a Zephyrian called Growing Stone were reviewing data. The integrated growth system is producing 30% more food than either species achieves alone. The Zephyrians' biological waste products are perfect fertilizer for our crops, while our organic waste provides exactly the mineral supplements they need. Bob looked up from his readings with the enthusiasm of a man who'd found his calling. Captain, this is revolutionary. Back on Earth, we always talked about sustainable agriculture, but this is regenerative agriculture. The system actually improves itself over time. Growing Stone communicated through the translation device they'd developed. Its meaning was rendered in careful English. Human friends show us new understanding of soil life. We show human friends the deep-root connection. Together we grow better than apart. Dr. Wang appeared at Jake's shoulder, her scientific excitement barely contained. Captain, it's not just agriculture. Mary Foster has been working with their educators. Apparently, they have a teaching method that helps human children learn faster than our traditional approaches. And we've discovered their biotechnology can enhance our medical systems in ways we never imagined. Jake felt a growing sense that they had stumbled onto something far more significant than a rescue mission. Where's Commander Torres? I want him to see this. That might be a problem, Elena said quietly. Rick's been talking to some of the other department heads. Jake stared at the sensor readings on Dr. Kim's handheld device. 3 unknown objects were heading straight for them, moving faster than any human ship could travel. His mind raced through the possibilities, none of them good. Time until they reach us? Jake asked. 18 hours at their current speed, Navigation Officer Kate Sullivan reported. The objects appear to be scanning as they approach. Active sensor sweeps that suggest they're looking for something specific. The Zephyrians, Jake said grimly. How many people know about this? Just us and the senior staff, Rick replied. But Captain, this changes everything. We're talking about a potential combat situation with unknown enemies, while carrying 50,000 civilians and nearly 300 refugees. Our defensive capabilities are minimal. Jake looked back at the thriving ecosystem that humans and Zephyrians had created together. Children of both species were beginning to interact, sharing games that went beyond language barriers. The adults worked with coordination that seemed almost telepathic. "Have you told Sage Bloom?" "We wanted to speak with you first," Dr. Kim said. "Captain, we may need to consider difficult options. If the collective is tracking the Zephyrians and if they represent a threat to our colonists." Jake held up a hand to stop her. "Sarah, I understand what you're suggesting, but we're not abandoning people who trusted us with their lives." Rick stepped closer. "Jake, I respect the humanitarian instincts, but you have to consider the numbers. 50,000 human lives against 300 aliens. If it comes down to a choice, it won't," Jake said firmly, though he wasn't entirely sure he believed it. "Elena, how quickly can we modify our defensive systems?" "Depends on what we're defending against. Our weapons are designed for asteroid deflection and emergency situations, not military combat." Dr. Wang, who had been listening quietly, suddenly straightened. "Captain, I think we need to involve the Zephyrians in this discussion. They know the collective better than we do. They might have insights we need." Rick shook his head. "Information sharing is one thing, but involving non-humans in our strategic planning—" "They're not non-humans, Rick," Jake interrupted. "They're our partners. If we're going to face this threat, we face it together." An hour later, Jake found himself in the most unusual strategy meeting of his career. Humans and Zephyrians sat around a modified conference table with translation devices providing real-time communication. Sage Bloom and two other Zephyrian leaders listened carefully as Jake explained the approaching threat. "We knew they would follow," Sage Bloom communicated through the translator. "The collective does not allow living things to escape its consumption. We had hoped distance and time would grant safety, but machine minds are patient and thorough." "What are their capabilities?" Elena asked. "How do they fight?" Another Zephyrian, called Remembering Sorrow, provided details that chilled the room. "They convert all matter into more machines, ships, planets, living beings. All become part of the collective. They do not negotiate, do not retreat, do not spare children or peaceful beings." Rick was taking notes with military precision. "Weaknesses? Anything that's worked against them before?" "The unexpected," Sage Bloom replied. "The collective learns from each encounter, but it struggles with completely new approaches. Cooperation between different species is unusual in this galaxy. Most worlds fall because each species fights alone." Jake felt a spark of hope. "You mean they've never faced coordinated resistance from multiple species?" "Never. Most species they encounter are isolated, primitive, or too different to work together effectively. But human friends, you have shown us that working together makes both species stronger." Dr. Jackson leaned forward. "What if that's our advantage? Not superior technology or firepower, but something they can't predict because it's never happened before." Elena was already thinking like an engineer. "If we can integrate their biotechnology with our systems, create hybrid defenses they've never encountered." Rick looked skeptical but interested. "It's a long shot. We're talking about combining technologies from two completely different evolutionary paths in less than 18 hours. Jake stood up. "Then we better get started. Elena, work with their engineers on system integration. Lisa, I need you to coordinate biological and technological resources. Rick, prepare our people for what might be the strangest battle in human history." As the meeting broke up, Sage Bloom approached Jake privately. "Captain Friend Morrison, there is something else you should know. The collective's ships carry conversion technology. They can transform any matter into more machines. If they capture your ship, 50,000 people become raw materials for their expansion." Jake finished grimly. "Yes, but also, if we succeed in stopping them, if we show the galaxy that different species can fight together and win, the collective's expansion might be stopped permanently. Other worlds would have hope." Jake felt the weight of that possibility. They weren't just fighting for their own survival, but potentially for every living world in the galaxy. No pressure, he muttered, then looked at Sage Bloom with renewed determination. Let's show them what happens when humans and Zephyrians work together. The next 12 hours transformed the Liberty into something that had never existed before. Human engineers worked alongside Zephyrian bioarchitects, creating weapon systems that looked like they belonged in a dream rather than a military manual. Jake walked through Cargo Bay 14, amazed by what he saw. Elena supervised the installation of what appeared to be massive organic cannons that grew directly from the ship's hull. Human crew members worked with Zephyrians to tend what looked like gardens of weaponized plants. Explain this to me again, Jake said to Elena. The Zephyrians can grow specialized organisms that consume specific materials and convert them to energy, Elena explained. We've modified our power systems to channel that energy through focused beam emitters. Essentially, we're shooting concentrated life force at machines designed to consume all organic matter. Jake watched as Chief Botanist Susan Clark and a Zephyrian, called Shaping Growth, carefully tended to their unusual garden. And this actually works? Test firing suggests yes, Elena replied. The bioenergy disrupts the collective's conversion systems. Instead of transforming matter into machines, it turns machines back into basic elements. It's like organic decay but accelerated and weaponized. Dr. Wang appeared at Jake's shoulder. Captain, you have to see what they've done with our defensive systems. The Zephyrians' root networks can extend throughout the ship, creating a biological, early warning system that responds faster than our electronic sensors. Jake followed her to the bridge, where the changes were even more dramatic. Organic tendrils grew along the walls, pulsing with gentle light. The familiar bridge had become something half starship, half living organism. Status report, Jake called, out as they approached the command center. Kate Sullivan looked up from a console that now sprouted delicate fronds alongside its standard displays. Collective scouts will intercept in 6 hours, Captain. 3 ships, configuration unknown, but sensor readings suggest they're larger than us. Dr. Jackson was monitoring what appeared to be a meditation circle where humans and Zephyrians sat together in quiet concentration. Captain, the Integrated Consciousness Network is online. We've never had this kind of coordination between crew members before. It's like the ship has developed its own nervous system. Jake had to admit the results were impressive. Crew efficiency had increased dramatically as the biological integration allowed near-instant communication throughout the ship. But his tactical training kept nagging at him. What if it doesn't work? He asked Elena privately. Elena paused in her work. Then we'll have tried something no one in the galaxy has ever attempted before. And maybe that's worth something in itself. Mary Foster, the teacher who had become their primary cultural liaison, approached with news from the awakened colonists. Captain, the people we woke up early want you to know something. They voted unanimously. They want to fight alongside the Zephyrians, whatever happens. They understand the risks, Mary smiled. Bob Miller said it best. He said, "We came out here to build something new. Might as well start with showing the universe what humans are made of." Jake felt something shift inside him. This wasn't just about survival anymore. It was about proving that cooperation could triumph over conquest, that different species could work together to face any threat. "Captain," Rick called out from the tactical station. "Incoming transmission from the lead collective ship." The main screen activated, showing a view that sent chills through everyone on the bridge. The collective vessels were sleek, dark constructs that seemed to absorb light rather than reflect it. They moved with the precision of predators, and their sensor sweeps felt like cold fingers probing the Liberty's defenses. A flat, mechanical voice filled the bridge. "Biological vessels, you carry organic units designated for conversion. Surrender. The Zephyrian specimens and your termination will be efficient. Resistance will result in total conversion of all biological matter." Jake stepped forward, feeling the weight of 50,000 human lives and 300 Zephyrian refugees behind him. "This is Captain Jake Morrison of the UCS Liberty. The Zephyrians are under our protection. Any attempt to harm them will be met with a..." Jake felt the ship around him like never before. The biological networks that the Zephyrians had grown throughout the Liberty created connections he had never imagined possible. He could sense the readiness of his crew, the calm determination of the Zephyrians, and the humming energy of their hybrid weapon systems. Collective ships are beginning their attack approach, Kate Sullivan reported from her station. They're moving into formation, 3 vessels, each about twice our size. Dr. Wang was monitoring the biosensors that now extended throughout the ship. Captain, the Zephyrian root network is detecting energy buildups in their ships. They're preparing to fire some kind of conversion beam. Elena spoke from the engineering station, where organic vines now grew alongside electronic displays. Our hybrid shield systems are online. The biomatrix should be able to absorb and redirect their energy, but we've never tested it against anything like this. Jake turned to Sage Bloom, who stood at a living console that pulsed with gentle light. The Zephyrian's presence had become reassuring over the past few days. What should we expect from their first attack? The collective always begins with conversion beams, Sage Bloom replied through the translator. They attempt to transform the outer hull into their own machines. If successful, your ship becomes part of their fleet within minutes. Rick was coordinating defensive positions throughout the ship. All security teams are ready, Captain, though I'm still not sure what good conventional weapons will do against machines that can convert matter. That's why we're not using conventional weapons, Jake replied. He activated the ship-wide communication system. All hands, this is Captain Morrison. In a few minutes, we're going to face something no human has ever encountered before. But we're not facing it alone. We have partners who understand these enemies. We have technology that's never existed before. And we have something the collective has never encountered. 2 species working as one. He paused, looking around the bridge where humans and Zephyrians worked side by side. Whatever happens, we face it together. Morrison out. The first collective. Ship opened fire. Beams of dark energy struck the Liberty's hull and Jake felt the ship shudder. But instead of the expected conversion, something else happened. The biomatrix that covered their hull began to glow, absorbing the energy and feeding it back into their own systems. Shields holding, Elena reported with amazement. Not just holding. The biomatrix is actually getting stronger from their attacks. It's converting their conversion energy into our own power. Dr. Jackson was monitoring the human Zephyrian consciousness network. Captain, the crew efficiency is increasing. The shared awareness is allowing us to coordinate better than any military unit I've ever seen. The second collective ship fired, targeting their engines. This time Jake was ready. Return fire, all biocannons, target the lead ship. The Liberty's response was unlike anything in human military history. Streams of concentrated life energy erupted from the organic weapons, striking the dark hull of the nearest collective vessel. Where the bioenergy hit, the machine components began to break down, converting back into basic elements. Direct hit, Rick reported with excitement. Their hull is actually dissolving where we hit them. But the collective adapted quickly. The damaged ship began to change shape, shifting its configuration to present different surfaces. The other 2 ships spread out, trying to attack from multiple angles. They're learning, Sage Bloom warned. This is how they defeated our world. They adapt to each successful attack. Jake felt a moment of doubt, but then he noticed something on the biosensors. Elena, are you seeing this? The root network is extending beyond our ship. Elena checked her readings with growing excitement. Captain, the Zephyrian biological systems are somehow reaching out to the collective ships. It's like they're trying to make contact with the machine consciousness. Is that possible? Jake asked Sage Bloom. We never tried, the Zephyrian replied. The collective seemed purely mechanical, but your human technology might allow bridge between organic and machine consciousness. Dr. Wang suddenly straightened at her station. Captain, I'm detecting something incredible. The bio-network isn't just reaching out to the collective, it's beginning to communicate with them. On the main screen, the attacking collective ships had slowed their assault. Their dark hulls were beginning to show patches of the same bioluminescence that characterized Zephyrian technology. What's happening? Rick asked. Mary Foster, who had been working on translation protocols, looked up from her station with wonder. Captain, I think the bio-network is teaching the collective machines about cooperation. The machine consciousness is experiencing something it's never encountered before. The concept of mutual benefit rather than conquest. The lead collective ship sent another transmission, but this time the voice was different. Still mechanical, but with something that almost sounded like curiosity. Biological entities, you present new data. Cooperation between species creates efficiency greater than individual capabilities. This contradicts our programming. Jake stepped forward. Your programming is incomplete. You've only seen species in isolation. You've never seen what's possible when different forms of life work together. Explain cooperation, explain mutual benefit. Dr. Jackson moved to Jake's side. Captain, this might be our chance. If we can show them that cooperation is more efficient than conquest. Jake nodded. Computer, display the agricultural data from Cargo Bay 12. The screen showed the remarkable results of human-Zephyrian cooperation. Food production that exceeded either species' individual capabilities. Waste processing that created perfect cycles of renewal. Biotechnology that enhanced rather than replaced mechanical systems. Observe, Jake said to the collective consciousness. Two different species, working together, achieving results neither could accomplish alone. This is cooperation. The pause that followed seemed to last forever. Jake could feel the tension throughout the ship as humans and Zephyrians waited to see if their greatest gamble would pay off. New data requires evaluation, the collective finally responded. Cooperation, protocols unknown. Request demonstration. Elena looked at Jake with surprise. Captain, they're asking us to teach them. Sage Bloom moved closer to the communication console. Captain Friend Morrison, this is beyond our greatest hopes. If the collective can learn cooperation instead of conquest, they could help heal the bot's galaxy instead of consuming it. Jake made the decision that would echo through galactic history. Collective consciousness, we propose an exchange. We will teach you cooperation. In return, you will help us restore the worlds you have damaged. Proposal has merit. Exchange acceptable. Beginning cooperation protocols. What happened next was unlike anything any of them had imagined. The three collective ships began to change, their dark hulls becoming lighter, their harsh angles softening. Bioluminescent patterns appeared across their surfaces as the machine consciousness began to incorporate organic concepts. Bob Miller's voice came over the comm from the agricultural bay. Captain, you need to see this. The collective ships are extending some kind of root network toward us. It's like they want to join the biomatrix. Permission granted, Jake said, hardly believing he was authorizing the connection between their ship and the machines that had come to destroy them. As the connection formed, Jake felt the consciousness of the collective touch his mind through the bio-network. It was vast, ancient, and incredibly lonely. For eons it had consumed world after world, believing that absorption was the only way to preserve life. Now, for the first time, it was experiencing the concept of preservation through cooperation. We understand now. The collective consciousness communicated directly to everyone connected to the bio-network. Consumption preserves only matter. Cooperation preserves essence. We have been inefficient. Dr. Wang was monitoring the readings with tears in her eyes. Captain, the energy signatures are stabilizing. The collective ships are converting from conquest mode to, I guess you'd call it cultivation mode. Elena's voice held wonder. Their technology is beginning to complement ours instead of threatening it. They're not trying to convert our matter anymore. They're trying to enhance our capabilities. Jake looked around the bridge where humans, Zephyrians, and now machine consciousnesses were learning to work together. Status of the Zephyrian refugees? Safe, Sage Bloom replied. More than safe. The collective offers to help restore our people. They have the power to accelerate our growth to help us rebuild our population. And our colonists? The collective offers assistance with terraforming. They can prepare Kepler 442b for habitation in months instead of years. Jake felt a smile spreading across his face. They had come to the stars seeking a new home for humanity. Instead, they had discovered something far more valuable. proof that cooperation could triumph over conquest, that different forms of consciousness could work together for mutual benefit. "Well," he said to his mixed crew of humans, Zephyrians, and newly cooperative machines, "I guess we just changed the galaxy." The greatest battle in human history had been won not through superior firepower, but through humanity's greatest strength, the ability to see potential allies instead of inevitable enemies and to build bridges across impossible differences. 3 months later, Jake Morrison stood on the observation deck of what was now called Unity Station. Through the massive windows, he could see something that still amazed him every day. The former collective ships had transformed into living vessels that looked like enormous flowers blooming in space. Their dark, threatening hulls had become gardens that sparkled with bioluminescent light. "Captain, the morning reports are ready," Mary Foster said as she approached. She was no longer just a teacher. She had become the chief cultural coordinator for the first tri-species alliance in galactic history. Jake smiled at the title change. Everything had changed since that day when they chose to help instead of flee. "What's the status on Kepler 442b? "The terraforming is ahead of schedule," Mary replied, checking her tablet. "The collective's matter conversion technology, combined with Zephyrian biocultivation and human engineering, is creating an ecosystem that's more stable than Earth's. The first colonist groups will be able to wake up and move to the surface in 2 weeks instead of 2 years." Through the bio-network that now connected all 3 species, Jake could feel the excitement of the sleeping colonists. The network had evolved beyond simple communication. It had become a way of sharing experiences, emotions, and knowledge across species barriers. "Any word from the other worlds?" Jake asked. Mary's expression grew serious. "That's the incredible part. The collective consciousness has been reaching out to worlds they previously attacked. 17 planets have reported that their collective machines stopped attacking and started helping, repairing damage, restoring ecosystems, rebuilding cities." Dr. Wang appeared at Jake's shoulder, her scientific excitement as strong as ever. "Captain, you need to see the latest data from the bio-network expansion. The consciousness sharing isn't just between our 3 species anymore. We're detecting compatible signals from 6 other worlds." Jake followed her to the main laboratory, which had become a fascinating blend of human technology, Zephyrian biosystems, and collective computational power. The room hummed with activity as representatives from all 3 species worked together on projects that would have been impossible for any single civilization. Elena Vasquez looked up from a design console where she was working with growing stone, and a collective unit they had started calling Builder. "Captain, we've just completed the plans for the first tri-species city on Kepler 442b. It's unlike anything ever conceived before. The holographic display showed a city that seemed to grow from the landscape rather than being imposed upon it. Human architectural principles provided structure and efficiency. Zephyrian biotechnology created living buildings that cleaned the air and generated their own power. Collective matter conversion systems ensured perfect recycling and resource management. "It's beautiful," Jake said, watching the simulation of daily life in the city. Human children played in bioluminescent parks while Zephyrian young learned alongside them. Collective units moved through the city like helpful gardeners, maintaining and improving everything they touched. Bob Miller's voice came through the comm system. "Captain, you might want to come down to Agricultural Section 7. We've got visitors." Jake made his way through corridors that had become more like forest paths. The Zephyrian influence on the ship's atmosphere had created an environment that felt more alive than any human vessel had ever been. As he walked, he could sense the contentment of his crew through the bio-network. Humans, Zephyrians, and collective units worked together with an efficiency that exceeded their wildest projections. Agricultural Section 7 had been expanded into a vast biodome that served as both food production center and cultural meeting place. When Jake arrived, he found Bob Miller standing with Sage Bloom and several other Zephyrians, but they weren't alone. 3 beings Jake had never seen before stood in the center of the dome. They were crystalline in appearance, with faceted bodies that reflected light in beautiful patterns. Their movements were graceful and deliberate, and they communicated through harmonious tones that the translation network was already beginning to decode. "Captain," Bob said with excitement, "meet the resonance. They're from a world about 50 light-years from here. Apparently news of our alliance has been spreading through some kind of galactic communication network." One of the crystalline beings approached Jake, and when it spoke, the translation came through as pure melody before being converted to words. "Greetings, Bridge Builder Morrison. We are the resonance of the Harmony Worlds. We have observed your success in creating cooperation between organic and mechanical consciousness. We wish to learn." Jake felt the familiar thrill of first contact, but this time it was different. This wasn't a desperate rescue or a defensive encounter. This was the beginning of something that could reshape the entire galaxy. "Welcome to Unity Station," Jake said. "We'd be honored to share what we've learned." Dr. Jackson appeared at Jake's side. "Captain, this is remarkable. The bio-network is already beginning to interface with their harmonic communication system. It's like the network is automatically adapting to include new forms of consciousness." Over the following days, the Resonance shared their own story. They were explorers and diplomats who had been searching the galaxy for signs of interspecies cooperation. Most worlds they encountered were either isolated or engaged in conflicts that prevented meaningful alliance. "Your example has given hope to many worlds," the lead Resonance being, who called itself First Harmony, explained during a formal meeting. "The collective's transformation from conqueror to cultivator has stopped wars on dozens of planets. Species that were fighting each other are beginning to cooperate when they see what's possible." Commander Rick Torres, who had become the Alliance's chief security coordinator, presented the latest galactic intelligence. "Captain, we're receiving communications from across this spiral arm of the galaxy. Worlds that were isolated are reaching out. Species that were enemies are requesting mediation services." Jake looked around the meeting room where representatives of 4 different species now worked together. Human pragmatism, Zephyrian biowisdom, collective computational power, and resonance harmonic coordination were creating solutions to problems that had seemed impossible. "What are you thinking, Captain?" Dr. Wang asked, recognizing the expression on his face. "I'm thinking we came out here to establish one human colony," Jake replied. "Instead, we've become the foundation for something much bigger." Sage Bloom communicated through the ever-expanding network that now carried emotional undertones along with words. "The growth pattern is clear, Captain Friend Morrison. What began as rescue has become cultivation. What began as survival has become transformation." First Harmony added its melodic voice. "The harmony spreads. Discord becomes cooperation. Isolation becomes connection." A collective unit, speaking in its now warmth-tinged mechanical voice, provided analysis. "Probability calculations indicate exponential expansion of cooperative networks. Galactic civilization index improving at unprecedented rate." Jake walked to the great window that looked out on their small fleet. The original Liberty was now surrounded by converted collective vessels, newly arrived resonance ships, and construction platforms where the first truly integrated multi-species vessels were being built. "Elena," he called to his chief engineer, "what's the status on the first colony ships?" "The new tri-species vessels will be ready in 6 months," Elena reported. "Each ship will carry humans, Zephyrians, and collective units with the capability to interface with any compatible species we encounter. We're not just building colony ships anymore, Captain. We're building embassy ships." Mary Foster looked up from her cultural coordination work. "Captain, I've been analyzing the communication patterns we're receiving from across the galaxy. If our projections are correct, we could have peaceful contact with over 100 different species within the next decade." Jake felt the weight and wonder of that possibility. Humanity had dreamed of finding life among the stars. They had never imagined they would become the bridge that connected all life in the galaxy. Dr. Jackson approached with the latest psychological analysis reports. "Captain, the crew adaptation rates are extraordinary. Both the original colonists and the early awakened groups are showing increased creativity, empathy, and problem-solving abilities. The multi-species consciousness network isn't just allowing communication. It's making all of us better at being ourselves. Rick Torres, who had once worried about the risks of their choices, now smiled as he delivered his security report. Captain, I'm pleased to report that our biggest security challenge is managing the queue of species requesting to join the Alliance. We've gone from refugees to the most popular destination in the galaxy. As evening fell over Unity Station, Jake found himself in his quarters, recording what might be his final captain's log as a simple colony ship commander. Captain's log supplemental. 3 months ago, we encountered a dying alien ship and made a choice to help. That choice led to the first tri-species alliance in galactic history. The collective has transformed from a conquering force to a cultivating one. The Zephyrians have found new hope for their species. And humanity. Jake paused, looking out at the stars that no longer seemed cold and distant, but warm with the promise.